Hey everyone, welcome to The Naked Truth. How are you? Happy Monday. We are testing out Restream. So if you comment right now, it's going to show up here. And if you join us right now, you can actually be part of the conversation and taste Restream. Restream.
Is it sexy? Is it better? What's the deal? Let us know.
Yeah, we're testing Restream to see how different it is from StreamYard and how different it is from the way that we're interacting with people. So one thing that we noticed, we don't have a big banner on the top to show you where to come in. But if you come in here, bethenakedtruth.com/live, you can be part of this little experiment.
It's true.
Speaking of experiments, let me do this one. If you recall, our weekly Wheel of Fortune. So we're going to spin it right now. Your names are not in there, but you need to add your name in there. And you can do that by
commenting. You got to leave comments and preferably leave them on the site. Come hang out with us on the site. There's a lot of scanning we have to do. bethenakedtruth.com/live. Come hang out with us. We'll do it. We'll try to check LinkedIn and Facebook and Google Plex 740 and all these other sites that Ifat has us on. But, if you can just be on our site, it's home.
It'll be so much nicer.
Yeah.
It'll be so much nicer. And so we want to, there we go. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah. Monday. Musing. So we got so much every Monday. We're kind of like piling up all the information we want to talk about.
A lot of stuff happens over the weekend.
Yeah, because we're both like geeks going through our notes. So the first one we want to talk about is Gap.
Gap. The Gap. This is back. Do you have our changing landscape?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, come on. You got to put it on. Yes. Put it on, and I'll lean in and I'll do that.
You can't. Okay.
I can't?
You can't on this one.
Oh, because it takes me away, and then my microphone shuts off.
Well,
Way to go, Ifat. Way to go.
No. Here to go. Just do it. It's like on my thing, right?
The changing landscape. That's nice. All right.
So the changing landscape.
So we're back. We always do every Monday. We do a little bit of like, how do we continue to see the way things are shifting from the pandemic? And this is one that, again, we've sort of talked about it before, but the Gap, you think of like big brands, the Gap stopped paying its rent at malls all over the country. And now the Simon Mall Company, which is like maybe the biggest, if not, it's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest mall brand they're suing them. They're like, look, we want our money. Makes me think of that when Pearl, remember that that viral video that I can't think of his name. It's driving me crazy. Ron Burgundy, comedian Will Ferrell did a viral video years ago where this little girl comes up to his door and it's Pearl, his landlady, and she's like, I want my money. And he's trying to make excuses for how now we're in a real life version of that. The Simon Company is Pearl and they're like, we want our money. And Gap's like, what do you want us to do? People aren't shopping. Like we have no money. Which
is super interesting, right? Because, most of the time, individuals are struggling with their rent and their mortgage. And so what does, when Gap says, I don't have any money, what does the landlord say?
Right? They're like tough cookies. Like, we got expenses too. This is that thing. It's amazing. We all want to think of like, is it right or is it wrong? And you go, it's not always about right or wrong. It just is. Like, the malls need to keep the electricity running.
Right.
Like, they have needs too. The Gap doesn't, it's like all of us. It's one of those times where you go, everybody seems to be going through the same kind of thing. And in that article, it's not just the Gap. In that article, it's like they name a bunch of other big brands that are all doing the same thing. They say potentially as many as half.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. TJ Maxx, Bed Bath & Beyond, 24-Hour Fitness, AMC Theaters. Oh, wow. Well,
AMC Theaters said they don't know if they're going to be able to make it. Like they're like, we might go out of business.
Yeah. Starbucks requested the landlords to make concessions June 1st. Wow.
Right?
That is a biggie. So it's very interesting, right? Because it's like, yesterday we went to do a shoot, like a B-roll shoot, right? And then we're getting hungry and we're like, okay, what's open? It's such a weird thing where it's like, well, we're out and about. Is there anywhere where we can eat or we can sit down or we can do something?
Right.
Really fascinating. And yeah, like theaters, you know what? It kind of makes me think about like how small of a profit margin do they have? Right? Because
I
it's
don't
like,
know. It's that world where you go, how can their profit margin be that small with what they charge for a box of popcorn? I don't know that world. I don't, maybe maybe what they have to pay for in licensing fees for the movies is so much that that's the only way they can make money is to sell obscenely overpriced popcorn and soda, right? And so you go, so if people aren't coming and they're not doing that, what do they do? It's
yeah.
strange time. But
Yeah.
all right, we got more. We got a lot of stuff. Let's go.
Okay. Next one. What was the next one? Volunteering to get laid off.
This is where it's at. You think about like your first thought viscerally, you're like, why on earth would you want to be unemployed? Right? But there are lots of people who are going to their employers and they're like, if you want to lay me off, you can.
And I think it's because they're getting something off of it, right? Aren't they getting so they're filing for unemployment?
So in the article it says like if you did get laid off, there would have to be a severance package, right? So the company would be trying to save money, but you wouldn't literally just stop showing up. Like you would work out a severance deal where they'd give you 30 days of pay or sometimes 60 days of pay. And then after that time goes by, if you still haven't found a job because you did get laid off, you can then file for unemployment benefits. But I think the thing that I don't know if people are thinking about is I've seen on like social media, like TikTok and stuff and Facebook, people making posts about how right now with the federal bonus, like the unemployment is like some people can make more money on unemployment right now than they were when they were working full time because of the $600 federal bonus that they're sticking on top of the unemployment. And you're like, but that's not going to last forever. Like, what if you take a severance package right now and 30 days from now, the government says, all right, we're phasing into reopening. It's working well. We're not doing that anymore. And then the states would then naturally, I think, go, okay, the government says we're not doing it, so we're not offering unemployment the way we were before. Like right now, in my state in New Hampshire, I can get unemployment even though I'm self-employed. They changed the rule.
Huh.
Yeah, they changed the rule and said if you're self-employed and you're not getting work because of COVID-19, you can file for unemployment. Well, they're not going to let that stay forever. Right. So again, you could think, yeah, I'll take a buyout right now and then I'll just collect unemployment. And you go, you don't know how long that's going to last.
Right. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who took the stimulus check and went partying. So, right. And so here's a comment from Stuart. The companies are working out buy packages. That is the company asking for people who want a buyout.
Right. Exactly, Stuart.
And this is why we are using Restream. We want to see if we can put your comments.
I like that. That's a nice feature.
Right? Yeah. But let's see how we run the whole thing, because Stuart is saying that it's not letting him in. So we'll have to look at this again, Stuart, because that's a thing. So next one, Generation Z.
The Gen Z kids. I think this is so sweet. Look. Yeah. We do this thing in our culture, right, where older people love to piss and moan about younger people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we talked just last week about how much millennials have caught the brunt of that for a while. Right. As everyone like to complain about millennials are this and they're not that. And of course, then you shift on to the next generation, the even younger ones. And what we're seeing is these kids are stepping up in the most profoundly beautiful ways. Like it goes back to there was the group of them that were doing it when the school shootings occurred, where they were like, enough, we're not putting up with this anymore. And now again, in the face of all these protests, they're stepping up and saying, we're tired of waiting for the grown-ups to fix these social justice issues. And so they're going out and they're hitting the protest areas and they're using TikTok and Snapchat, mostly TikTok, though. They're crushing it on TikTok.
Yep.
And they're calling this stuff out and they're saying it just isn't right. Now, again, what we do culturally is we write them off. Well, they're young. They don't know anything. Yeah. I'm like, maybe they do. Maybe
Yeah,
they're
you
the
know, and
voice.
it's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating how they're actually calling off their families, and they're like, "I cannot be a part of this family anymore because you guys are racist, and you're not
Yeah.
right." Which is super, super interesting because some of the responses that the parents have is like, "Okay, we've heard enough of you," right? And I'm wondering if they're attached, like the parents who think a certain way, go like, "Oh, you're a teenager. It's a teenage phase. You're gonna get snap out of it. You know, this is not a real social issue that you have to pay attention to because, you know, we think this way and that's the way to think."
But that's how systemic racism works. That's how things get institutionalized, right? Is entire generations of people just get apathetic and say, what are you're young and you don't understand. This is the way it's always been and this is the way it's going to be. There's nothing we can do about it. That's how this shit goes on longer than it should.
Yeah.
So I say, God bless these kids. They're not going to be perfect. They're not always going to, make the best choices in how they do their protesting and stuff, but at least they're trying to do something. They're honestly trying to make the world a better place. I think we ought to give them a little more credit.
I agree. I am very, very impressed with the fact that kids are stepping up and they're getting hurt. You know, they're catching bullets, they got tear gas, and they're still coming out there. One of the things that shocked me was going on TikTok and finding this kid going like, "Hey, this is how you prepare yourself for a protest. Here you need to wear a mask. You need to have some milk with you if you get tear gas. This is how you protect yourself. Here's how long it's gonna last." And I'm like, really, this is what we are 2020, where we have to have, instructions of what to do when everyday kids get tear gassed on a social network, explaining to them how to deal with that.
Well, they said the same thing when the school shooting stuff, it got to that point where schools just finally started going, well, this isn't going to go away. So we'll start running drills and we'll teach these 7-year-olds how to go through shooting drills and stuff, and people were saying the same thing. It's on the one hand you go, well, they got to do something. And at the same time you go, yeah, but what you're doing is you're normalizing it.
Exactly.
When you start putting practices in place, you're saying this is just how it's going to be. And so we have to have these structures in place. It's hard. I don't know. Again, it's not right or wrong.
I don't have an answer, but it's beyond. And I'm just grateful that my kid is too young to even, notice what's happening around him. We live in suburbia, so there's nothing that he sees. Yeah. But fudge, if I had to have conversations with my kid about this.
So this takes us to the other thing that I really want to talk with you about, though, is this comes back to when you interviewed Philip Stutz, and he was like, influencers are done, basically, right? Yep. And I'm like, but the other thing they're saying now is they're writing some of these articles that are saying influencers are jumping onto this pattern as well. Like influencers are saying, I have a platform, I can speak for social change.
Right.
And they're sort of, I don't know if abandoning is the right word, right? Like they're not totally abandoning their previous content creation, but they're adding content creation based around these social justice issues. Totally. And I'm like, so was Philip Stutz, I'm not going to say wrong, but was he not all right? Like,
so he said when he was talking about influence, he was talking about the way that we looked at influence. So the way influencers were becoming influencers was because of vanity, because of aspirations, style, and that doesn't matter anymore. What matters now is safety, caring for others, and trust. And go so now they're changing their conversation from "look at my bikini" to "I care about people," which is the message he was talking about. He goes as an influencer who cares about people, this is my job, this is my responsibility, this is what I have to say.
Right.
So it's good, right? Because we're moving away from admiring people for, having a good physique or good genes to actually what they're doing and saying, which means that one of the YouTubers, I can't remember his name, Luke something, was actually charged with looting because he goes...
Oh, the Paul brothers, Logan and Luke.
No, one guy. It wasn't two, it was one.
Well, but they're the famous YouTubers, the brothers. Jake and Logan Paul.
Yep.
And one of them went through and was documenting everything that was happening in a mall. And he was there, like he was in the mall illegally.
Right. So he wasn't really, are you documenting or are you really looting?
Right. Well, he wasn't, they had video of it. He wasn't taking anything, but you're like, he's like trying to claim almost like journalistic,
right.
Like I'm there, almost like a journalistic capacity. And you're like, yeah, but you're not a credentialed journalist. Like, I don't know. It's another weird, are they just trying to make an example of him?
So
or,
a lot of
should you
people
cut
said,
him a
like,
break?
they showed his stuff, and he always tries to capitalize on social events, right? So when everything
Oh
is,
yeah, yeah. I mean, those are the same. I don't remember which one, but those were the same ones. Might have been both of them that they went into that suicide forest in
yep,
Japan.
yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whoa.
So
I'm like, what the hell, right?
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and that's another thing, like, which I love about what's happening right now with TikTok and teenagers and all that stuff, right? We stop going to that extreme clickbaits, right? Because that's what it is, a clickbait. Oh, look at that. I mean, the thing, 10 million views. And now we're actually going to more real, um, more real topics that actually matter and people getting emotionally and personally involved.
Wouldn't it be cool if that's how, if like influencers evolved to that? If it be, you're never going to have people who are like, I'm not going to show my boobs anymore. I'm not going to show my six pack abs anymore. There's always going to be these people that get followers that way. But wouldn't it be cool if a sizable segment of influencers evolved into that? Like, I just want to try to have a good message and make a difference. That'd be amazing. It'd be so
Yeah.
cool.
Well, that's what Philip is saying. The other stuff doesn't work anymore, so they're finding new ways.
Right.
Uh,
Right. That makes sense.
yeah, it's great. Our next one is folks are talking about defunding the police, right?
Sweet baby Jesus. This
It's an interesting conversation. I had that this morning. What's interesting to me about this is two things, right? When something is so corrupt and you can't fix it from the inside, you have to start anew. So doing away with the police is not going to work because we need someone to save us, right? But we need someone to protect, right? Serve and protect. And if the people in there are not protecting, then we need to replace them with people who are protecting. But there's also another layer beneath that, which is a lot of people, like, you think about the issues that the police needs to deal with: homelessness, youth, right? Emotional issues, psychological issues. And they're saying, okay, let's take the money away from the police and put that into social services or youth programs so that when they
Right.
grow up, the police doesn't need to go and beat the shit out of them because we haven't helped them,
So so there's a bunch of things here that I'm like, oh my God, we could talk about this for hours. But so one thing is, we just need to have a much, and when I say we, I mean whoever's talking about defunding the police, there needs to be a much more articulate conversation than that incredibly broad general idea of defunding the police. Like, what does that really mean? What are you really talking about? What are you really proposing? And I think that a lot of people aren't asking those clarifying questions. They're immediately having an image of like, take all their money away. And you're like, yeah, how do you think that's going to go? Like, how do you think, like,
So
how do you think that's going to go
right?
when you need help and all of a sudden there isn't any because they don't have the money? I mean, come on. But I think the part that you brought up that's really good, and we've already seen the precedent for this.
Yeah.
We've seen it in fire departments, right? In the 90s, I distinctly remember because I had a company in my hometown that was the early adopter for sprinkler systems.
Mm-hmm.
And when the laws started coming into play that were like, if you build a building, there has to be sprinklers. And then they went further and they were like, and if you have an old building that is going to have like business and people are going to be coming there on the regular, you need to retrofit them and put sprinklers, right? Like, so they were catching up on that. And this company exploded and they were like the leading company in the whole state for putting in sprinkler systems. And imagine that was happening like everywhere, right? It took years and years to do it. But once it happened,
that was it.
You didn't need firefighters nearly as much anymore because the sprinkler systems were nipping stuff before it was getting bad.
Yeah.
And so what you saw was people who got into firefighting to fight fires were becoming disillusioned and stressed and bothered because what was happening and still is happening if you talk with firefighters, yes, they do fight fires, but they spend most of their time as an emergency response personnel. They're going to vehicle accidents. They're going to like all other kinds of stuff besides fires. And so you think about like, do we need to have should we actually create some kind of new agency
Right.
right? Where you're like, we need an agency that lets police do the policing, lets firefighters fight fires, and there's like this social agency that deals. I don't know, but it's that element, right? Of like,
Well, that's kind of like, a little bit what we're talking about. If they take the money from the police and put it in youth, right, or in social services, then that's the sprinklers, right? We kill it before it becomes something major. What if you defund the police and you only have SWAT, right? And you're like,
this again, so that's where, this is now we're getting into policy, right? And stuff that what I think a lot of everyday people don't recognize is you and I should not be making those decisions. Yet we don't trust government at this point, so we don't want them making it. But the reality is you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Mr. Citizen and Miss Citizen. So like you shouldn't be defining these things. Like this is again like your opinion doesn't really matter.
well, but let's argue that one, because you should know what you're talking about in your community, in your city, in your county, right?
Yes.
And that's how it goes up. So you should be involved. You should know the crime rate, the homelessness rate, all the things that affect your community. So if you don't know, you should know, and then you can
The
have
old adage,
to say about it.
opinions are like a-holes. Everyone's got one and they all stink. Like,
it's true. So Robert was saying first accountability. We need accountability.
We do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then Stuart was saying bad word, politicam. People and leaders are trying to change the word to reform.
Yeah. So he's saying defund the police is the wrong word to use, right? Because defund creates the thing of just take away their money. And it's not as simple as that, right? Like what Stuart's saying is it's a terrible framing. Like reform, like real reform is what is needed.
They were talking about actually, Minneapolis was talking about it.
Oh, it's an easy thing to get people talking about. But again, I think Stuart's got a good instinct there is like, it's not as simple as saying defund. Like, you really need to say reform, and reforming the police system may mean changing the way funds are used. But defunding seems like such an absolute word. Like you're just going to take all their money away. I'm like, let's have a better way of explaining what we really.
So maybe you don't take all their money away, but maybe you don't invest 6 billion people in making, in creating I don't even know what to call it. Right now, from what I'm seeing, is like a beat up force, right? Star troopers, where you just go and knock people out, right? No rhyme or reason. So,
yeah. But again, that we're seeing in the real videos right now, though, like there are so many police that are not out there doing that right now. Like, so that's where, again, I'm like, how do you separate
that one than that one, which bugs the bejesus out of me, because I know there are good policemen out there. But
yeah. So it's like, how do you separate those issues, right? Like, there are so many people who are dedicated to service that are working within that system. And yes, the system has issues. That is not even up for debate. The system has serious issues.
Yeah.
Something needs to happen. But to simply turn around and paint them all with a broad brush of like, we can't do that. We had to have a more civil conversation that's less about outrage and blaming and more about how do we all help there be a solution at a community level.
Yeah, and that's really what we're asking, right? We're asking for a social reform, right?
Yeah.
On like such an emotional topic, right? Where everybody's like feeling their identity is being questioned.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't come easily.
And I've told you that's the biggest button to push in everyday people. When you challenge people's identities, they lose their minds. Like they just you got to be careful about how you do that if you want to get anything done. Yeah. Because otherwise people's emotional threat systems, they get all activated and they freak out.
Yeah.
But, all right, we got like 4 minutes left. Let's get one more in at least.
So Grayland is saying police department are overfunded, particularly in regards to social services and healthcare. Yeah, I think we need to nip it at the root, right? Like wherever it's happening. So let's talk about some good news. There is a guy in the Rocky Mountains.
I love this story.
Isn't it great? So 10 years ago, he wanted people to start traveling in the Rocky Mountains some more. And so he hid a treasure, like a treasure chest with diamonds and gold and rubies and I can't remember what else, like a bunch of emeralds. And he wrote a poem, he wrote a song, and in the song he put the clues of what that might be. And so this is what it looks like. And then now, 10 years later, someone found it. And
So wait, when you told me this before, I want to clarify. Did they find it actively, or did they just stumble upon it?
no, there are like people like this woman here in this video. She's been searching for it for 3 years, 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're like, and if you guys want to watch this video, it's really, really cool. Like, you should watch it. So it'll load up. But this is the guy, and he wrote a poem. If gold and gems are what you seek, we have a quest for you. Of well-worn trails in rocky mounts, a chest awaits one true. Of heart and mind, both result in purpose and in goal. Who knows no gold outlines, that hues that sparkles in one's soul. So he put like, and there's a few more, it's a long poem, but one of them was,
That's so cool.
yeah, it's really cool. And he just started, he found the chest and he's like, he started filling it up with stuff and it's like $1 million.
Can you imagine if he like worked so hard on that poem and everything, and he like overestimated how good he was at hiding stuff, and he like imagine if he put it out and like the next day someone's like, I found it, and he's like, fuck.
Yeah, so it took them 10 years and
10 years. He did a good job, right?
Yep, and it was in the bushes somewhere, and like
that's so cool. And think about in 10 years later. Probably if it was like in much bigger bushes and like right?
Like
the terrain would actually change. Yeah.
And this lady that was traveling, that you can see here, let me show you. So this is the story, right? He goes in and this is his office, and he puts, where is she? Yeah, and he puts like, he creates the chest, and she just goes around. She's like, oh, he was talking about a river. See, it's like she's for 3 years. She's tracking the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
And they followed her for a little bit, and she didn't find it.
Now, what about that? Do you think she like lost her mind?
Yeah, that was.
You worked that hard on it.
Very
right? You worked that hard on it, and then you heard it finally got found.
Yeah.
I'd be like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Mashing stuff, or like, oh man.
Yeah, and so it's very interesting. But one of the things that she said is that the love of trekking and nature and all that stuff. That's
good for her,
right? That's so cool. Robert says that he is familiar with the story. It's a good story. It's in all that mess and stuff like that, people actually leave treasure chests.
Well, isn't this? It's not really that, but it makes me think of geocaching.
Yeah, I did that.
Right? Like it's sort of the spirit of geocaching. It's just on like a crazy, awesome level.
Yeah, on like $1 million.
Yeah,
rubies and diamonds. But
if anybody watching has a cool geocaching story, I want to hear it. Like I've always wondered, like, is that worth doing or not? So like, if you've got cool geocaching stories, leave them in the comments area. And let me know, because I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, let Paul know, because I'll tell you from experience.
Have you done it?
Yeah, I've done it.
And it's always boring?
It's, people hide it in like the weirdest places, and you're like, by the time you find something, and then it's like this tiny little thing, you're like,
it's underwhelming.
It wasn't worth the search. We spent like an hour and a half to find this.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know, like, if you don't know if the person before you, if they took it away, or you're just like searching for nothing, right?
Like someone didn't sort of honor the code, right? Because you shouldn't leave
it there, right? And you're just like going around in circles. You're like, okay, there's nothing here. Yeah. So
I still want to hear from other people. Now she's If I'd ruin it for me, someone save my fantasy of how cool geocaching might be.
Yeah. So Monday Musing, tomorrow we are going to talk to you guys about a tool, a free CRM tool. If you guys want to run your company with a project management system, a CRM, which is, what's it called? Client, what do you call it, CRM?
I don't know. I was going to ask you. That's another one of the jargons that I don't really
Now we're going to be like really silly.
Yeah, right. Hold on. I'll just, because you see it all the times. Where's it?
Customer
Customer relationship management.
Yeah, now we're all smarter. Customer relationship
Customer
management.
relationship management.
Yeah, so if you need like a chat bot on your site that connects to a customer management system, that connects to tasks, that connects to like how you run your entire company, tomorrow we're going to show you the tool that I use in my company. It's fantastic. It's free, and it's nice. So
Let's do it.
do
It
it.
might be good for my new site. Maybe. I need to be convinced that it's not just a bunch of work. I'm willing to put in the work if it's really going to help. But if it's not, I'm going to punch you in the face.
So someone, like all the messages that like, good morning, good afternoon, bless you, that people sending like in WhatsApp and stuff like that. Usually it's parents. And so someone put a post in a Facebook group and said, I want to drive to my parents' house at night, steal their phones and delete all those images so they can stop sending it to the group. So my dad just sent like one of those messages and I replied with that one. And he goes like, great, when are you coming? So same thing. You want to punch in the face?
Sweet.
When are you coming?
Nice. He's like, I'll just focus on how I get to see you if you do that.
Oh, exactly.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
all right.
We'll see you guys.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. This is how we do it, baby.